Welcome to the Antonio Parkinson Project. I am Antonio Parkinson, and today we have the one and only District Attorney Steve Mulroy in the building.
Yes.
Finally got it. So listen, don't go anywhere because we are going to talk about a lot of things that are germane, and there's a lot of questions that people have to ask. So hit that subscribe button. We'll be right back. You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project. Welcome back to the Antonio Parkinson Project. I am Antonio Parkinson. You're watching the fastest growing visual podcast in the Memphis market. Give it up for that.
Yeah, doing numbers, baby.
And numbers matter, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And give it up for my lovely co-host, Angelika Geli Woods.
Yeah, they got me hostage. I can't even go home.
Man, she's been a diva.
I'm pressing charges, and we got the right person in here to do it.
Right. Hey. And give it up for my DJ. He's my DJ.
Hey.
DJ Kojak in the building. Scratch it up for him 4 times. DJ Kojak.
Bam. One time for the HBCU, man, Southern Heritage class. Y'all do y'all thing.
If he gonna be working, he gonna plug.
So I got a question. I got a question
Come on
to the DA,
Come on
District
now.
Attorney.
Come
Steve
on now.
Mulroy. Did you hear that scratch?
Come on now.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you heard?
My man.
Y'all
My
give it
guy.
up, man. Y'all give it up for the District Attorney. He is the duly elected
Yeah.
County District Attorney
Come on.
General Steve Mulroy in the building. Give it up for him. Hey, look, I always, almost want to. I have to catch myself because I be wanting to call you commissioner, right?
Yeah.
Because he was a county commissioner, Steve Mulroy. And then I don't know if he considers, being a DA a promotion or not. But first of all, thank you so much for joining us here, man.
Yes.
We've been wanting to have you on the show. People got questions, there are questions, lots and lots of questions. And here's where I want to start because our show is not just about entertaining, but it's about educating also. So please explain to the people what your job is.
Sure.
And step up to the mic also. If you
Oh,
don't.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. District Attorney is the chief prosecutor for Shelby County. Anything which is in federal, we handle. So any violation of state law, we're the prosecutors that prosecute the cases and, take them to court. So I've got a staff of 230, 120 of them are lawyers. They're prosecutors. And we are in general sessions court and criminal court every day prosecuting the cases.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So he is the prosecutor. So he is the one that will. If you are being accused of breaking the law,
That's right.
We're gonna break this down in granular form so
Sure.
everybody understands it.
Yeah.
If you're accused of breaking the law, then your job is to
Bring them to court, prove the case, tell the judge or the jury they need to find him guilty, and then tell the judge what kind of sentence we recommend.
Okay, but they work the deal through you too, right?
Say again.
You work the deals through you, right? The deals, like
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Yep.
our job would also be
Yeah.
if they don't want to go to trial, if they're willing to plead guilty, then we'll work out a plea agreement.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know this is one of the top questions that people are asking. What is your role when it comes to bail?
You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project.
What is your role when it comes to bail?
That is a great question.
Hey, look, we're coming off the ropes off the top, right?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. No, and this is a lot of misunderstanding about this, Touche. People got to make sure this is clear. A lot of people out there thinks that the DA's office sets bail. The DA's office does not set bail.
Say it one more time for the people in the cheap
The
seats.
DA's office does not set bail. Bail is set in the first instance by these judicial commissioners. They're kind of like assistant judges
Never knew that.
appointed by the county commission. And that happens without any involvement of our office. We don't even see the case until 3 days later. If they're still in custody, if and only if they're still in custody 3 days later, we get the case for the first time.
After the bail is set?
After the bail is set.
Wait,
I didn't know that.
We cannot walk past that.
I didn't
We cannot
know
walk
that.
past that. So let me, and you tell me if I'm explaining it the wrong way. Person is charged. Walk us through the process. A
Sure.
person is so there's an alleged crime that happens.
Right? Police arrest the guy.
Police arrest the guy.
They
go
charge
slow.
him.
Go slow.
All right, police arrest somebody, they charge him.
They
right?
charge. Police arrest them. They charge them.
All right. And
Okay.
so they're brought over to the jail. County Pretrial Services interviews them, collects information, sends that information off to this judicial commissioner. They work 24/7.
Who? Wait a minute. Let's stop. Let's pause for a
Yeah,
second because
yeah.
I need everybody to get this.
He loved that.
The judicial commissioners.
Yep.
Who do they work for, and who are they?
Well, they work
Not
for,
by name, but who
sure,
are
sure.
they?
They work for the people of Shelby County. They are 15 lawyers who are appointed by the Shelby County Commission.
Okay, so the Shelby County Commission
Right.
appoints the judicial commissioner.
That's right.
So we hadn't seen a judge yet.
Nope.
We had, and you're not involved at this
Not
point.
yet. Not
Okay.
yet. So-
Okay.
So then the judicial commissioner will set a bail.
Who oversees the judicial commissioners?
Well, the judicial commissioners are overseen by one general sessions judge, and they rotate. And this year it's General Sessions Judge Lee Wilson who supervises. Now, there is a head judicial commissioner, a guy
Okay.
named John Marshall.
Okay.
And so he supervises the judicial commissioners, but Judge Lee Wilson supervises him and all of them.
Okay. So because we want to take this slow,
I'm
man.
looking
We
at
want to
it.
make sure that
I got the tear in my
I never
head.
knew this. I never knew this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I got to go back to this. You still are not involved in this case at all.
Still not
yet.
involved yet.
Crazy.
Right.
Nope.
So then these judicial commissioners
Yep.
who are lawyers,
Yep.
who are appointed by the county commission,
Yep.
who are overseen by the head judicial commissioner, and who that person is overseen by a judge,
A general sessions
and in
judge.
this case, Judge Lee Wilson.
That's right.
And in previous cases, it was
Judge Bill Anderson.
Judge Bill Anderson, and that overseeing is rotated every year, right?
That's right.
I think that's a new law that we just passed about that. Am I correct?
Yeah, but they'd actually been
They
informally
were already doing it.
Yeah.
They were already now. So you still have not seen the case.
Nope.
Have no involvement.
Right.
Bail has been set.
That's right.
So you had nothing to do with setting the bail.
That's it. That's
Well,
it.
I'll be damned.
Wow.
So now we're gonna pause here for a second because I gotta ask this, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but why are you catching the blame for people not getting or people receiving, no bail or R&R, what we call released on their own recognizance?
Right.
Why are you getting the blame for it?
You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project.
Well, it's a great question. And my own view is that there are politicians who know better.
Give us the uncut version. You on the Antonio Parkinson Project? You don't have to be kind. Give us
No,
the uncut- okay.
there are politicians out there who know better that are deliberately trying to shift blame to me or just put blame on the Democratic DA because it helps them with their politics. And then there are a lot of citizens out there who don't know any better,
don't know.
who lap that stuff up and they repeat it.
Well, but here's the thing. If the citizens are not educated, that's why it's so why I was pushing you to come on the show.
That's why we need shows like this.
Right.
Yes,
If the citizens are not educated on how this works, then they're left to believe only what they hear.
That's right.
On the news and in newspapers.
That's right.
And based on this explanation, it completely debunks everything that's been put out there in the media.
Yeah. No, that's true. Now, to, I guess, give the devil their due, if the person's still in custody 3 days later, if and only if.
Well, okay, we're talking about 3 days later after bail has been set?
That's
or
right.
3 days, okay.
Yeah, 3 days after arrest, right?
Okay, 3 days after arrest.
If they're still in custody, then there can be a bail hearing,
Okay.
and that would be the first time our office gets involved. But
Okay.
even then, all we can do is make a recommendation. The judge makes the final decision.
Okay, is it the judge or the magistrates that make the final decision?
So Sometimes it's another judicial commissioner. Sometimes the general sessions judge decides to take it for themselves. Some general sessions judges like to do the bail hearings themselves. Others will have the judicial commissioner do it for them.
Okay. What am I? I'm off script.
No.
Okay. And so
we have a role at that point, but it's only a recommendation.
Okay.
And a lot of these cases that you've heard about, that you just referred to, Touche, where it was in the media, it was, a controversial bail decision. They either took place in those first 72 hours when we weren't involved at all, or they were a situation in which we didn't agree with what the judge did, and yet we're getting blamed.
But why? But my question to you is why are y'all not laying the blame where the blame should be laid?
We're doing
aggressively.
We're doing our best.
Yeah.
We're doing our best.
Okay.
We're putting that message out there whenever we can. Shows like this, the guys, people like you are really helping with that. And I have to tell you, we are seeing some results. I go out and talk to neighborhood groups all the time. And lately, I've been getting more questions about the judicial commissioners and the judges.
Okay.
So that people are starting, I think, to tumble to the right answer. They're starting to get it. But there's still a lot of misunderstanding still out there.
So one of the things that I would like to do, and I ask you this live on the air, is I would like to hold a town hall meeting in my district for us to really, because this is, I can see how it can be convoluted to the unknowing eye.
Right.
Yeah. And but I think it's vitally important that our people, and when I'm talking about our people, I'm talking about the citizens of Memphis and Shelby County, that they understand,
Right.
What this looks like, and we need to visually, lay out a flow chart so
Maybe
people
an
can see.
infographic. That's what I was saying. My mind was like looking at an infographic. Okay, this is how it works and everything. And when you're talking, it made me frustrated for you to almost be the fall guy because it makes sense. Everybody has to have a face to a issue.
Yep.
And it in your case, that's the case. And
Well, I'll tell you,
yes.
I can live with criticism. I can even live occasionally with unfair criticism because, you just got to get a tough skin and you just got to, but when politicians use the misinformation to drive for something like, removing a duly elected DA by the legislature, that's where I think they push it too far.
You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project.
Yeah.
But what's sad about this is because I serve with those individuals at the state level, and some of them are local, right? But they serve at the state level also. What's sad about it is that they know how this stuff works. Yep. They know what the flow chart is. They know, who's in charge of what and who's responsible for what. And it's sad and unfortunate that people's lives are being affected and they're making and one individual that was duly elected by the people a scapegoat. What's the comment?
Almost, can I say this before the comment?
Okay,
but
yeah,
it's almost like they're banking on their misinformation or their ignorance, to say lack of it. They're like they're playing with people's ignorance instead of educating them. That's what
it's to their advantage.
I feel. I don't know who you're talking about, but no, that's not okay at all. So go ahead.
So what the question was from the commenter, and who was it? Cheryl Ray. Okay, shout out to Cheryl Ray. We appreciate you. Thank you for correcting
Cheryl Ray.
She know her stuff. Okay.
Right. So you're right. And look, no, because what's happening is those magistrates in juvenile court are like, no, that ain't us. Right. That ain't us.
Right.
But those judicial commissioners, which is basically the same thing, just in different jurisdictions.
Yep.
Right. One in magistrates in juvenile court. That's their name.
Right.
Judicial commissioners in general sessions. Am I correct?
That's right.
Okay. And so yes, and thank you for that correction, Cheryl.
And I'll say just to again, to give the devil their due, some of the people on the other side would say, okay, we get it, we understand that the judicial commissioners make the initial decision, but then they say, oh well, you're not arguing when you do get the case, you're not arguing aggressive enough for higher bail or whatever. But then they don't give any specifics, and like we're in the courtrooms every day aggressively arguing, but they just make these claims that then they don't give any details.
So, but I think it's important, because you're saying, some of the people on the other side. I think it's important for our watching and viewing and listening audience to understand who it is that you're talking about. So so there's no it leaves no it doesn't leave any guesswork. And I don't know if you're comfortable with that or not.
Sure.
But you know, it's important to note that these accusations, a lot of them are coming from the state level. You know, the state legislature. You know, and so those are some of the, you know, the Republican supermajority. Those are some of the people that he's saying that they're leveling these accusations. But here's the issue. Here's the problem. The problem is that when the people of Memphis and Shelby County hear these accusations, they immediately believe them without the education that's needed to understand how bail flows.
Or fact checking. Like,
But I feel like they're loud with it. And Steve, I don't, you know, I know you got a demeanor, but you know, and you know, put together. But I feel like you should be just as loud as roasting them. I'm just this man. You should be roasting them and bringing this to light and letting them know, because, like I said, I always say a lot of times that's what a lot of the I'm gonna say Republicans, they're loud, even in their ignorance. They're loud and they're very vocal. And
such as Haitians eating your
dogs and cats.
Thank you. In Ohio.
It don't matter how ridiculous it is.
And people will believe that because you know, people, you know, some of the media will take that and run with it. And you know, and it's sad and unfortunate, but your situation is no different than and indicative of the same situation that we're dealing with when it comes to this referendum being on, you know, on the ballot, right? Yeah. And so, you know, again, is you know, I don't want to call it, you know, state overreach. No, because what it is simply the Republican supermajority attempting to flex and flexing without being completely honest about what it is, right? And because the referendum being on the ballot is not against state law, and they were saying it's against state law, and I know for a fact. I'm a state legislator. I know for a fact it is not against the law for Memphis to hold a referendum.
You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project.
Now, if they pass an ordinance that is counter to, you know, what state law says, then that's where the fight begins. But the fight doesn't begin because you decide to let people speak.
Well, you remember the abortion trigger law that they passed a few years back before Roe v. Wade got overturned?
I do remember that.
Right. So it was clearly against the law in terms of the Supreme Court had ruled you couldn't do it. But what the legislature said was, we know that, but if that law ever changes, then we want this to be what the regulation of abortion is. Like it was called a trigger law, right? Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not trying to wade into the abortion issue. I'm just using it as an example. This is the same thing. If state law ever allowed it, then this is what Memphis would have in terms of gun regulations, right? So what was non-binding is a trigger law. It's set there in case the state law ever changes, right? To give them some ammunition to bargain with the state and say, hey, would you consider allowing us to opt out of this regulation or that, well, you know, whatever rule about the guns. And so that's why it's so surprising that everyone got so worked up about it, because it wasn't purporting to actually change state law.
Non-binding.
Yeah.
It's non-binding.
Yeah, non-binding.
You know, but it does give the citizens of Memphis and Shelby County an opportunity to voice their opinion on the policies that are coming down from state government, which have appeared to be harmful to the citizens of Memphis and Shelby County.
But no one's, I think, disputing on either side that in a conflict between state law and local law, state law wins. I mean, no one's disputing that, right?
Right.
So.
Got you. Nichelle, we got a comment.
Oh, I'll
Everybody
ask it. Cheryl Ray. Cheryl Ray said, I feel like there are certain offenses that shouldn't even get bail. Is that legal?
Under Tennessee Constitution, you are entitled to bail unless it is a capital offense. In other words, unless it's first-degree murder where the death penalty is in play. The Tennessee Constitution says you are entitled to bail. Now, the way that some judges do a workaround is they will select a bail that they think is unaffordable, right? So that the guy can't make the bail. And that's kind of the workaround. Now, interestingly, there is a movement afoot to amend the state constitution so that you could theoretically deny bail outright for certain types of violent offenses. It doesn't have to be a death penalty offense. It doesn't have to be first-degree murder.
Right.
And I actually agree with that. And you'll find this...
And I agree with it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you'll find this amusing. At the press conference where Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton proposed this, I was standing right next to him.
And I was there too.
Yes.
Right.
And we were all on the same page.
Right.
Yeah. But, in this particular instance, Cameron Sexton and I are...
Right.
And you are all on the same page.
Absolutely. And Cheryl, and I appreciate that question. And a lot of us agree that, and I can tell you some of those offenses are, I think it's carjacking. I think it's the most violent offenses in Tennessee law. Right. I think rape and murder and of course, capital offenses are already in there. And so we're all on the same page when it comes to that. But here's the issue. The Tennessee Constitution right now, as it reads right now, says only capital offenses, which is capital murder, like intended. It will define capital murder for people so they know.
Well, capital murder is either intentional and premeditated killing of a person or the killing of a person in perpetration of certain underlying felonies like robbery or rape.
Okay. So right now, according to the Tennessee Constitution, which is the highest law in the land, that's the only thing that you can offer bail for. I mean, that you can deny bail for.
Right.
You can deny bail for.
Right.
And so right now, there is a move afoot to change the Constitution so that more offenses, our most violent offenses, are added to that list.
Yes.
And so, and I think a lot of people agree with that. Even the DA agrees with that.
No
also,
problem with that.
Carjacking is on that list too.
She just asked, she said, why not carjacking?
Yeah, Cheryl asked, why not carjacking? Carjacking is on that list. I don't know if switches is on that list, but carjacking
Switches need to be on there.
Right. And so that, but remember now, remember to our viewing audience that the DA and the judges and the judicial commissioners, they all have to abide by what the Constitution says.
Absolutely.
So if it's a crime right now as it stands, if it's a crime, or let's say a crime of child rape, that is not a capital offense. Correct? So
That's
that
crazy.
person can receive bail based on Tennessee law,
That's scary.
not based on what General Mulroy says, or what the judicial commissioner says, or what the judge says. It's based on what the law says.
And that's absolutely right, Touche. And I'll also say, Kojak was saying earlier about the switches.
Jackie.
Yeah.
Oh, did I get you?
I'm messing with you. I'm messing with
He
you.
good. You called me.
I'm not supposed to use that name?
You good.
I just wanted you to call him Jackie.
Jackie.
My closest friends would call me Kojak.
I'm messing with you. I wanted you to call him Jackie on the air. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Steve.
Well, so he was talking about switches. Another thing that I've been pushing lately is I want to increase the penalties for possessing a switch. Switch is that device that converts a regular handgun into kind of a machine gun.
Okay, hold that thought.
Sure.
Hold that thought, because we want to talk about increasing the penalties for switches as soon as we come back. You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project. Hit that subscribe button.
Grab a backwood and roll up. Grab your cup and let pour up. They didn't want us round it first, but now they act like they know what. Hey, but they show love, yeah, we show out when we show up. I don't even do the liquor, that shit might make me throw up. But we turned up, this the after party. Shit grabbing on my body. White girl got a bottle in the club, and that going gnarly. Turned up in a wreck the party. We just brought out everybody. No, we got our have some fun. We at the after party.
Hey y'all, it's Michael Kaya and it's the Antonio Parkinson Project I'm on. They have fun around here. They got chicken and everything. If you really want to get the word, know what's going on in your neighborhood, in your community, in your blackness, you need to tune in to the Antonio Parkinson Project. And ain't even in the projects. Okay, so tune in. We love you. Keep God first.
You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project.
Welcome back to the Antonio Parkinson Project. I am Antonio Parkinson. You are watching the fastest growing visual podcast in the Memphis market. Give it up.
Yes.
And so we got our lovely co-host. She seems to have a burst of life, Kojak.
I'm just watching you get so excited about this conversation. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yes, so this. Oh, what about break it down? It's feeding off
Education.
you.
You love some education, don't you?
That's you. I'm just over here being entertained watching you do it.
Hey, y'all give it up for my lovely co-host Angelika Geli Woods in the building. Yeah. She was moody.
Yes.
I feel him.
You said
Okay.
He's gonna get
light.
kicked out the house when I get home tonight. See if
Ain't
y'all
nobody
here.
gonna kick her out the house.
Okay.
We had them conversations earlier.
Go
about-
fund me in the link.
Right.
Sponsor.
Yeah, give it up for my DJ. That's my DJ. DJ
Yeah,
Kojak in the building.
yeah,
DJ
yeah.
Kojak.
Jackie.
Scratch it up 4 times for the people of Shelby
Again.
County.
Bam.
Okay, thank you for adding something.
Pull that back.
Right.
I pulled back on that one.
And y'all give it up for General Mulroy in the building. Yeah, man. So when we left in the last segment, you were talking about something that in regards to switches. Let everybody know what a switch is.
Yeah, a switch is a very small device that you can attach to a handgun and basically converts it into a rapid fire machine gun.
Right. You can attach it to an assault rifle too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And right now, it's against the law to possess them, but it's only an E felony, which is the lowest level of felony in
wow.
Tennessee. And I've been saying for a while now that we need to raise that up so it's a C felony. Now, I'll say this. I am not one of those people that thinks the answer to every criminal justice problem is to increase the sentences.
Okay.
We tried that for a long time, and it generally didn't work. So, I think sometimes you've got to use the carrot as well as the stick, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But in this one particular instance, I do think the punishment isn't meeting the crime.
Okay.
These switches are out there. There's a flood of them. And they're really, hurting a lot of people. There's an arms race going on right now, and the cops are losing because too many criminals have these things, and it means it's dangerous for the cops, it's dangerous for bystanders, and we need to do something about it.
I need to pause you for 1 second.
Sure.
You said something that
There
is
go right there. Look.
profound. What kind of race is going on right now?
An arms race
Between
between the criminals and the police.
That's scary.
that. Hey. Yeah.
And they lose.
And they lose.
I think you missed it, and they lose.
Who's winning?
The police are not winning.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we need
the
to crack
police are
down on
out-
these
right.
switches.
So the police are outgunned in a lot of cases. Right?
Yeah, too many cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you're saying, what are you saying about the punishment, whether it fits the crimes with the switches? Is it too much or too little?
Too
What do you-
little. In
Okay.
this one particular instance, I would say that the punishment is too lenient. Glock possession, they call them a Glock switch often. It's not always a Glock brand of gun that's involved, but street slang, they call it a Glock switch sometimes. These switches don't need to be just the lowest level of felony, an E felony. They need to be raised up 2 levels to a C felony, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I have a question. So how do you go about making that change? Like it start with who puts in the petition? I
This
guess?
man right here knows it's the state legislature
Yeah.
that
Okay.
makes those decisions.
Yeah. It's,
I saw a film not too long ago. I was at this conference of prosecutors, and they had a demonstration film where they had one of those old-fashioned Tommy guns,
yeah.
in the
With the banjo on it?
Untouchables.
With the banjo on it? Uh-huh.
Yeah, so like, Al Capone, 1930s Chicago. They fired those, and then they took a regular old handgun, they put a switch on it, and they fired that. And the rate of fire was faster than the Tommy gun using the switch.
You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project.
So a Tommy gun is what we call back in the day a machine gun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Machine gun
Gun
Kelly.
Kelly.
Yep.
Yeah. And so they're saying that when you add a switch to these, either the handguns or these assault rifles, you get a rate of fire way higher than what you were getting with the machine guns and the
that's
belts and the
scary.
banjos. Yeah, and the banjos are out there.
Yeah.
They're still out
They still
there.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got General Mulroy, you got colleagues across the state, that are that do the same thing you do.
Yep.
And you're part of the DA's conference. Am I correct?
That's right.
Right. How are you accepted or received in the DA's conference?
Surprisingly well. When I first got elected, I wasn't quite sure because, I was a reform DA and I was one of only 2 Democrats out of all 32 DAs in Tennessee.
Yourself and General Funk.
Glenn
and
Funk
who's
in Nashville. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. But I get along with them really well. We have a good personal relationship. They've been very friendly with me, very accepting. I just recently, I was part of their Legislative Affairs Committee and I had several proposals that passed the Legislative Affairs Committee, so we're working together well.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm sure that General Funk was excited to see you come along.
Oh, yeah.
He was out on the island by himself.
He was. That's right.
Yeah, and so do you find yourself with many differences between your Republican DAs versus your ideology, when it comes to criminal justice reform?
Some, but not as many as you might think. Okay? So there are times when, they want to restrict expungements or, increase penalties very, very high where I might not always go the same place. But then you'd be surprised on the number of things that we agree on. So, they believe in prosecutorial independence. They believe in DA discretion. They don't like attempts by the legislature to restrict that discretion. We agree on that. We agree on the Glock switch thing. So most of the things that I've been talking about, like I want juvenile court records to be accessible in adult court when the judges are setting bail. Right now they can't be. They agree with me on that. We wanted to clarify the law on when a DA can appoint what we call a pro tem when there's a conflict of interest. We agree on that. So I think we agree on more than we disagree.
Right. Okay. And so, but let's stop on expungements for a second. Tennessee has been noted and it has been documented that the state of Tennessee is one of the hardest states in America, if not the hardest, to get back to a productive life after being deemed a felon.
Yep.
And so, in order to do that, you have to have your record expunged. And walk us through that, through expungement.
Yeah.
Because it comes through your office. Am I correct?
It can.
Okay.
A defense attorney or even a person representing themselves can file a petition with the court for expungements without our office's involvement. But we do handle a lot of those requests. And we have some prosecutors in the office who are experts in that area. And so they often will advise people. Citizens will call up and say, is this offense expungible or not? Or what do I have to do? And we try to help them as much as we can. In fact, our office sponsors expungement clinics.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We try and we go out there into the community at churches, and people show up and then we try to advise them as much as possible. But it is a complicated process to get expunged. It's a complicated process to get your voting rights restored. Actually, there's a restoration of all civil rights, voting, jury service, public service, all this stuff. And the law is complicated and it's difficult.
Yeah.
And it's not a good thing. And, in fact, there's a recent controversy going on right now about some people are saying that you have to have all of your civil rights restored before you can restore your voting rights.
Citizenship rights.
Yeah. But and some offenses, they interpret the law as you can never get your gun rights restored.
If
So
you had a violent offense.
so that means you can't get your citizenship rights, which means that you can never get your right to vote, even though you've served your time, paid your fees, even though it's been years since you've had any contact with law enforcement. And it just seems to me that what we ought to do is have a rule that says, if you've served your time and you've, you paid all your fees, then there's a path to get your voting rights back.
You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project.
So two things. One, there was a Republican governor. I can't remember which state it was. She said that once you've served your time and done your everything that you're supposed to do, your rights are restored automatically.
Yeah, automatic.
I forgot who. I don't know if you remember who that was, but it's a Republican female governor. And that's what it should be. Period.
Automatic restoration.
Yeah, automatic restoration. And but this year, I ran because our commissioner of elections came out and said you have to be eligible to get your gun rights back in order to get your voting rights back. I sat down with him and had a conversation because I really want to understand where he was coming from and why he was saying what he was saying. And he explained it to me. And I honestly, I can understand how he arrived there, right? Because the only place in our Constitution, Tennessee Constitution, where they speak to citizenship rights was when it says a citizen has the right to bear arms. That's the only place it said it. And so he took that as his interpretation to say you have to have your gun, be able to get your gun rights back in order to get your rights to vote back, because your rights to vote are part of your citizenship rights.
Gotcha.
Now watch this. There are 5 things that you lose when you become a felon. One is the right to vote. One is the right to bear arms. One is the right to serve on a jury. One is the right to run for office. And one is the right to serve in a fiduciary capacity. Right. So those 5 things. So what I did was I drafted legislation that would say you don't have to have all or none. You can go after the ones that you can be afforded. And I'll give you an example of that. If you were convicted of voting fraud, you can never ever vote in the state of Tennessee again. But that should not restrict you once you paid your debt to society. That should not restrict you from being able to get your right to bear arms. Or right to serve on a jury, or these other rights. If you were convicted of an aggravated offense and you cannot get your gun rights back, that should not stop you from being able to vote or being able to serve in other capacities that you are afforded.
Right.
So that's what my legislation did. But the Republicans killed the legislation, and watch this. Now they are redrafting the legislation so that they can run it themselves because their presidential nominee has 34 felonies.
That's what I said, but you can be the president. Okay, make that make sense.
Right. So in Tennessee, you can be on the ballot for president with 34 felonies, but you can't run for office as a state representative or a county commissioner with 1 felony.
Or a county clerk.
Or a county clerk.
Yeah, that don't even make sense.
Yes.
We're a joke. I'm sorry.
So that legislation is now, we call it bill jacking, right? So what they do is they'll kill the Democrats' good idea, and then they'll come back the next year and run it themselves and say, "Hey, look what we did." Right? Honestly, and I'm okay. I'm people over politics. So if you're going to run it, I'll let them know where it came from. Because they did the same thing with me with name, image, likeness. My colleague from Shelby County, State Representative Vaughn, killed my bill that would get college players paid, and then ran it the next year himself and passed it like it was his idea. And I publicly said that. I said it in front of him, and I've said it at the when we were passing the bill.
Is that kind of like being honcho?
It is being honcho,
Okay,
but in a much bigger way.
Okay, that's what.
But you have to have I think our district attorney understands, and I think he's like this too. But you have to. It's not about ego, right? It's about how can we best serve people. Am I correct? And that's what this thing is about. But for a lot of my colleagues across the aisle, no, sir.
But can I say something?
You can say what you want to say.
I can. Did y'all hear
You're
that?
co-host.
Oh, Lord.
Right.
But General Steve, I'm gonna say General Steve because I've been calling you Steve, and I shouldn't call you that. But
Steve is fine.
Okay, I will make sure it's Steve. And Parkinson, y'all both said the same thing a lot. You probably don't know that I listen to you because I probably rarely do. But yeah, what he said about the Republicans and Democrats, how there's a lot of things that you guys do agree on. Because even when you say you're in Nashville, whatever you guys are in, whatever room you want to call it. Sorry, I don't know the lingo. That a lot of people think that you guys disagree about a lot of things, but there's a lot of things y'all actually do agree on. Am I correct?
You talking about Republicans and Democrats?
Yeah, but you guys,
about 85%.
I'm saying you guys saying the similar. Y'all saying the similar thing. So I think I wanted to bring that up again because you automatically think we're at
each other's throats.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because even with you in the DA's convention, conference, 85% of the things that we talk about, we all vote the same way on it.
See.
But it's that 15%, and that 15% is important, right? And it serves people differently, right? What works for, and this is one of the things that I hate. And General Mulroy, feel free to chime in. One of the things that I hate is that they can pass legislation because they are in a supermajority. They pass legislation for rural communities. What works for rural communities don't work for the urban centers.
You're watching the Antonio Antonio Parkinson Project.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
My colleague Jesse Chisholm said it best. You know, when you hear gunshots out in the rural community, you know, somebody's, you know, about to, you know, drag some food into the house. Right? When you hear gunshots in the urban center, you know, it's a possibility that a violent crime has been committed.
A
Absolutely.
high possibility.
Yeah. So let's pivot just a hair. Let's talk about I got you, Senator Brent Taylor. You know, and what's going on with that? What's happening here?
Well, you know, I wish I knew. I mean, you know, he's certainly getting a lot of attention. He's playing to his base. He's getting clicks and likes and, you know, notoriety by going after me as the supposedly, you know, woke DA or whatever you want to call it. You know, I think it's unfortunate. I think in part it's based on a misunderstanding of what I'm doing in the office. You know, I mean, you know, it's not the case that we're not prosecuting. It's not the case that we're not going after violent criminals. You know, we're prosecuting tens of thousands of cases every year, at pretty much the same level as under my predecessor. You know, we're focusing on violent crime. We're doing a lot of those things. I mean, every day in the courtroom, we touch 1,000 cases. And, you know, we are putting people away for significant sentences when they commit serious offenses. And I wish that I could get that across.
Yeah. And so, you know, I think it's important to note that your predecessor was a Republican.
Yep.
Right. And you guys are prosecuting basically the same amount of cases as your Republican predecessor.
That's right.
Prosecuted.
Uh-huh.
And so there's really no difference in your actions, but they're still coming at you. You know, Senator Taylor, who is a Republican also, but from Shelby County. Now, you know, I think it's important for people to understand too that, you know, all of the cases don't have to be prosecuted. And what's the percentage of that?
Right. Well, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but, you know, we couldn't physically prosecute every case that's brought to us. We just don't have the resources.
Right.
So we have to prioritize. Right. So a significant percentage of the cases are going to be dismissed, either, you know, because we think the amount of time that the defendant has already served in jail is sufficient, or maybe there are proof problems, you know, a witness won't show or something like that, or maybe sometimes we just don't think that the crime is, you know, not crime, but like the technical violation is even worth it. You know, they've already done what they needed to do. But then we focus on the remaining cases, you know, and that's where we put the time in, you know, and vast majority of cases in any criminal justice system, anywhere around the country, including the federal system, plead out. Right? You were asking before if I did plea deals. Sure. Plea deals is the bread and butter of what we do. Over 90% of our cases will plead out. The defendants will realize they have no choice but to plead guilty, and then it's just a question of negotiating the sentence. But then there's, you know, the trials as well. And I'll tell you, people complain about the low number of trials that occurred, and that was even before I took over. Well, this year, we already in early August exceeded the number of jury trials that we had done so far in all of 2023. We are on track to have like a 60% increase in the number of trials this year that we had over last year. So I don't know, just this idea that we're not doing our job is just crazy.
Now, the increase in trials, is that because of the pressure coming from the Republicans, or is it just by you know, it just happened to y'all? Why is there an increase in trials?
That's because of some policies that I implemented before this talk of removal ever started. You know, there's a number of things we did. We have this thing called the state is always ready policy, which is, you know, if the defense attorney wants to continue the case, to postpone the case on the day of the trial, we're not going to agree unless there's a really good reason, and we're going to record what that reason is and have the supervisors look at it later on. If we're going to ask where the volume justifies it, we'll schedule 3 or 4 trials on the same Monday in the same courtroom on the expectation that some of them will settle. And then if more than one of them is ready to go, then the judges are really good about transferring the cases among each other so that they all get to be tried and there's no delays. There's a lot of things we're doing like that, and that's just a few examples of internal policies and procedures that are designed to make the cases go quicker, because justice delayed is justice denied, and that has borne fruit. We're now doing more trials.
But I have a question. A lot of people think that it takes a long, well, they want to know why does it take so long to go to trial?
Yep.
Like a really high profile case that has something to do with my husband's family. His nephew, now his cousin, was murdered maybe like 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I know it's 18, broad daylight, Hollywood. Yeah, it's devastating. And they've been in jail forever, but they just got charged like 4 months ago.
So I'm not
because a lot of people may not know. I mean,
I don't know about that particular case, but I will tell you in general. So first of all, there's going to be most of these cases, many hours of video footage that our office is going to have to go through and then give to the defense because they're entitled to get everything, right? And then they have to have time to look through it all, right? Very often, the defense, vast majority of the time, the defense is the one that's asking for the delays because they need more time to prepare or they want to work on negotiating a plea. Or very often, there'll be a change in defense counsel, right? So the defendant fires the defense counsel, hires a new lawyer. The new lawyer says, Judge, I got to start reviewing this case. Judges are in a real tough situation because if the defense counsel comes to the judge and says, I'm not ready to go forward, and the judge forces him to go forward and he loses, he may have an issue on appeal, right? And so there's a lot of different things. And I didn't even mention one of the biggest problems is the lab results. So often we're waiting for the lab results to come back. 10 months to get sex assault kits turned around. For some ballistics testing, it's 70 weeks before we can get results back.
Wow. So look, weeks. Yeah. So we're getting a hook by Nichelle, but when we come back, I do want to ask a couple of things. As a matter of fact, when we come back, we're gonna talk about Tyree Nichols. We're gonna talk about young Dolph, but I also want to ask the DA about what he was doing in regards to people that have been falsely accused before he got into office. So don't go anywhere. Hit the subscribe button. We'll be right back. You don't want to miss this.
What's up? It's Elise Neal. You are watching the Antonio Parkinson Project. Stay tuned.
You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project.
Welcome back to the Antonio Parkinson Project. I am Antonio Parkinson. You're watching the fastest growing visual podcast in the Memphis market. Let's give it up for that, man. We got numbers. We get the best guest right here on this podcast. Give it up for my lovely co-host Angelika Geli Woods. Give it up for
I'm learning a lot over here, so I know y'all learning.
I'm learning a lot myself.
DJ Kojak is in the building, but we're gonna suspense with the scratch this time.
Please, he got too many germs on their fingers from coughing. They're gonna be flinging.
Pettiness.
She threw me under the bus.
She's from German town. Right.
From Germany.
Give it up for our guest, DA Steve Mulroy. Man, we really appreciate you being here. So let's jump right in. Let me ask this question. You talked about witnesses not showing up, and sometimes, some of these trials, some of these cases just can't go to trial because you can't win the case, right? And so, it doesn't make sense to expend those resources when you can't win, right? Because the case is just not there,
right?
And so, would it benefit Shelby County to have a witness protection program in place?
Yes, it would. And we had tried something like that. Reverend Bill Atkins, and along with
dude from Crime Stoppers.
We set up something called RAP 901, and it was like a local witness relocation program. And it worked for a while, but then we ran out of funding.
Yeah, and you know, I actually ran legislation before that. That's where the idea came from.
Okay.
And it came. And shout out to my guy, Lieutenant Richardson. He was on our show, right?
Yeah.
It was his idea. Actually, that's where the idea came from.
And they're going back to the county commission to get more funding. So I hope that works out.
You know, I was trying to get that statewide witness
relocation.
protection or relocation put up under the Attorney General's office, state Attorney General's office, but they said we don't want it. That's literally what they said. We don't want it. We don't want to house it. We don't want to be responsible for it. So then I tried to kick it to the local level, but then General Wyrick said it was some issues with it or whatever. So that's why a lot of those cases don't necessarily go to trial, and so you have somebody that has a body on them, literally, and because either the witnesses are scared or because they still have to live here.
I thought there was a witness protection program. I know why people don't show up.
The federal government has had a robust witness protection program for many years, but that's only a small fraction of cases. And so, we're talking about the ability of the local government to do something like that. And we did it for a while. We ran out of funding. We're going back to the county commission. Maybe we'll get it.
Is there no way to partner with the feds on that? Or is there a way? I mean, I'm sure they're not expending all of their funds. They're unlimited funds. They print money.
I mean,
Now they print money.
No, they're not. They're going to do that only for federal cases.
God, as a matter of fact, what's the first thing you did when you came into office? What was your very first move?
Casual Fridays.
Hey, man. Give it up for that. Give it up for that. Okay.
But maybe not the first significant thing that I did. Yeah. Very early on, we set up a conviction integrity unit, as you mentioned earlier before the break, to look back at prior cases and see if we've had any wrongful convictions or wrongful sentences.
Why did you do that? Why did you do that?
Because I know.
Why did you feel a need to do that?
Because I know that there are wrongful convictions and wrongful sentences, and you hear about them all the time.
Here in Shelby County.
Throughout the state and in Shelby County, sure, and throughout the country. And, so much of the problem in rectifying them is just reflexive opposition from the DA's office that prosecuted the case in the first place. The unwillingness to admit that they made a mistake.
So ego.
Accountability.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Accountability.
Yeah.
Thing.
And so what we did is we created a new unit that was independent. They don't regularly work with law enforcement. They don't regularly work with the rest of the office. They're housed physically separate, and they report only to me. And with that independence, they can take an objective look and they can say, look, you know what? 5 years ago, we screwed this case up and we should admit it. The guy should go free. Or we screwed this case up and the sentence really doesn't need to be as long as it is. We made a mistake. And that's what the point of that is.
How many cases have you found that have been erroneously done?
You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project.
Only a few.
Okay.
Only a few so far. They get lots of applications, but some of the applications just clearly aren't meritorious.
Yeah, everybody's innocent.
Yes, exactly. They're all claiming innocence, right? But I know of at least 2 that we've done where the conviction was overturned. We've got a few more in the hopper that we're getting ready to work on. We've got one where the sentence was reformed. And then, I also gave that same unit, for the same reasons of independence and objectivity, I gave them the responsibility of looking at the officer-involved shooting cases to see whether prosecution of the law enforcement official was required. And so they've had a lot of those. That's been occupying a lot of their time, unfortunately.
Yeah, and hence where a lot of your issues, challenges are coming from.
Absolutely.
Issues are coming from. So speaking of which, 2 things on that we want to segue. One is, how's your relationship with Memphis Police Department?
Very
your
good.
Office, very good.
Very
good. Chief Davis, we send a shout out to Chief Davis.
Yep.
She survived the show. She's been here before.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
and that's really good to hear.
Yep.
Secondly, we got to talk about the Tyree Nichols case.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever you can talk about it.
Yeah.
How difficult was that for you?
Well, I was relatively early on in my time as DA.
I mean, right off the back. I mean, they threw you in the fire, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, my first week was the Liza Fletcher tragedy.
Man. Oh, man.
And everyone told me this was a once-in-a-decade case. Nothing like this is going to happen for a long time. And then 3 days later, we had Ezekiel Kelly driving around the city shooting people up.
3 days after
That was all in my first week.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, Lucas Vincent of the Commercial Appeal asked me at the end of my first week how I like my job. I said I demand a recount.
Right.
I would say I would ask for increase.
So then a couple of months later, I turned the page on a new year in 2023. I think, okay, things are going to be different now. We get Tyree Nichols. And of course, everyone was upset about it, as they should be. It was a tragedy. And one of the things that I'm proud of is that we realized that the public was demanding the release of the video as soon as possible. But at the same time, it would be useful if we made a decision on charging before we released the video. And so we worked it all out in record time. We did our investigation. We worked quickly but thoroughly and brought charges against those responsible within 3 weeks. And we were able to do that before the video was released. And I think that played a large role in the fact that although there were many protests, not only in Memphis, but around the country after the release of the video, they were peaceful.
But your actions, I believe, your actions and the actions along with, our police chief, CJ Davis, helped to calm those waters, man.
And let's not forget Tyree Nichols' mother, who also, called for calm. Credit goes to her.
Shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Wells. We love y'all. Appreciate that.
And you know what? Ben Crump, the nationally recognized civil rights lawyer, was interviewed with the Wells family there on CNN, and he said that the way our office handled it was, quote, a blueprint for the nation. And we're very proud about that.
And then I don't know what order this came in. You had of course the death of the young man right here in Raleigh at Egypt Central in I want to say Ross. Not Ross Road, because that's out east, but Ross Wood, right? You had a deputy, sheriff deputy that killed a young man, and then you also had the young Dolph killed.
Oh yeah,
I don't know which was first, right? And so
and young Dolph is going to trial soon.
Young Dolph is going to trial soon. So you've had some. I mean, I'm talking about national cases. That really made that made national headlines.
Absolutely,
and so how do you approach these things, man? How because even in the young man, me and you, we had conversations about that, and I appreciate you honestly. One of the things about the DA and myself and our relationship, it spans right years. I remember when he was hiking through North Memphis, and he called him and his daughter were literally hiking through North Memphis. And he called me and he said, "Hey man, where's some spots I need to stop at?" I said, "What? Where are you going again?" Right, yeah, we're gonna go through Hollywood and we're gonna do this.
It's called an urban trek.
An urban trek.
I wanted to make sure my kids saw parts of the town that they don't normally see, so they'd see the whole town.
They literally walked.
Wow.
They hiked literally through Hollywood and Chelsea, through Hollywood.
He made it through though. He made it.
Yeah. It was fun.
I told him a couple spots, stop by, man, get some food here, this, that, and other. Fat Burger, go to Hollywood Fish Market, this, that, and other. And so I said that to say that I've been blessed, to know him for a long time, right? And
thank you.
He's been knowing me since way before I was elected.
Yeah.
And we've been able to have an uncut conversation. We don't agree on everything, right? There's been very few things that we disagreed on, but we don't agree on everything. But to have a district attorney that is approachable, that you can have a conversation with, and that can give you the uncut version of what he can give you at the time. I think is a blessing to us here in Shelby County, man.
You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project.
Yeah, what's been your biggest struggle? Is there any decision that you've made that you wish you would have had a do-over on?
Ooh, good question. I'll have to think about that. But while I'm thinking about it, I can answer the first question about my biggest struggle. One of the biggest struggles I had was the pay disparity between the county paid employees and the state paid employees in my office.
Right. So prosecutors.
Yeah. Both prosecutors and support staff. Each of those groups was half county and half state, and the state got paid a lot more than the county for the same work. You would have people who would have more experience getting paid less. You would have supervisors getting paid less than the people they supervised. It was a morale killer.
Wow.
It hurt recruitment. It hurt retention. And everyone said, that's just the way it is. It's always been this way. No one had really ever tried to do anything about it. And so that was one of my biggest frustrations, and it lasted a long time. But one of my biggest triumphs was we eventually got to the county commission, and it took a lot. It was a lot of money, but they leveled everybody up.
Oh, that's really good. You know, it's interesting because I literally yesterday or the day before yesterday, I was in my TASSER meeting, and, you know, the DA's conference was before TASSER, and they were talking about, you know, pay, you know, and raising the pay or creating new positions for.
Well, one of the things they should have said, I bet you they didn't get to it though, is the county did it, but that's a temporary solution because automatic pay raises on the state side in a few years are going to make it start to get unequal again. And so what we've all been talking about is trying to shift a lot of these county prosecutor positions over into state positions little by little, so that we no longer have, you know, two different groups. We have just one group.
Yeah. And along those lines, you know, there was a report here that was done recently by Memphis Daily News that said 100 plus people have left your office.
True.
Is that skewed, or what's the
Well, they're talking about it. They're talking about it over a 2-year period, an office full of 230. And so that kind of a turnover is not really all that unusual. To give you an example, if you go back the same period of time under Wyrick, it was 80 something. Okay. So ours is a little bit bigger, but then you got to remember, it was an election, the first Democrat in modern history. You know, there's going to be some turnover, right? And so really, it's not that unusual given the number of people we have and the amount of time that we have. I will tell you this. One thing that we're very proud of is that I inherited a lot of vacancies when I took over, and we have consistently been at 90-95% plus capacity at all times.
So even with that turnover,
we're filling them all the time.
See, they don't tell that part.
They left that out. They left that out.
Man, come on. So even with there's them saying that you 100 plus vacancies or people left, 100 plus people left, but you're still at 95% capacity.
Yeah. Within a few weeks to a few months, we always fill each one of those positions. We're always filling. You know, so we're keeping it 95%.
They don't tell that part.
Boy, you talk about the rest of the story, right? The rest of the story.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. What is work-life balance like for you? Is there ever a time you can turn off your phone?
No.
Oh, no.
No, because I may get a phone call at 2 a.m., as I often do, saying we got an officer involved shooting. Do you want to call in the TBI or not? So I've got my electronic leash around me 24/7. But, you know, I knew that when I signed up, right? So,
Oh, no.
Yeah. Are you still loving your job?
I will tell you this. If you had asked me this question 2.5 months ago, I would have said, without reservation, I love my job. Although there are challenges and although there are stresses, I find it fulfilling. I'm making a difference. The staff is supportive. We get along. It's good morale, especially now that I leveled out the county salary disparity. It's great morale. But I got to tell you, it's been a little bit more stressful these last couple of months because of all this talk about removal. You know, I mean, I'd love to focus 100% of my time and energy on doing the best job I can do, but I got to look over my shoulder a little bit because there are these people out there in positions of power who were saying, never mind that we had an election, you know, we're going to overturn the will of the people in Shelby County. And it's never been done before in the history of Tennessee unless there was actual corruption, unethical conduct, like convictions of criminal activity. This would be the first time they're doing it for essentially over a policy difference. And, you know, but nonetheless, I still enjoy it. But that's a bit of a stressor.
Just keep doing the work.
Have you been in conversation with those individuals, and what are those conversations like?
Well, we're talking all the time. Actually, you know, there are a number of prominent people in the business community who have been talking to some of these legislators and saying, hey, can you slow your roll? You know, maybe this is not the best thing. So listen, you know, January is a long way away. February is a long way away. You know, conversations are constantly in motion. Yeah,
you know, and it's sad and unfortunate, you know, that, you know, Memphis and Shelby County is always a target for, you know, the Tennessee legislature, you know, for
not always. Sometimes it's Nashville.
Well, yeah. You're right. You know, but you know, I always think about, you know, the fact that, you know, Memphis and Shelby County, we're the biggest contributor to the state coffers, right? And you would think that they would embrace, you know, America's blackest city, right? And look at it from a perspective of, hey, this is an anomaly. We have something that is a freaking gold mine. If we just embrace it and allow the culture to flow, right? And you know, and let it win. And I said this, and I think I told the governor this. I said, Governor, Jamaica and the Caribbean islands, they make billions of dollars off of people wanting the black experience, right? That's getting your hair braided, you know, enjoying the food, the culture, the music. They spend money, lots of to coming to these Caribbean islands to enjoy the black experience. I said, but to be adversarial to Memphis, which is now the blackest city in America, and instead of embracing it and supporting it and saying, hey, look what we got, right? You know, the choice, and not saying necessarily the governor, but the Tennessee legislature chooses to have an adversarial, you know, relationship with us, and that's sad and unfortunate. You know, when we can be winning, you know, big time.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's disappointing and frustrating. You know, let's see what we're looking at. 3 minutes. So I do have to ask also. You know, you had this idea of giving. You know, I guess it was not expungement, but a second chance to felons
who had not committed any violent acts, right? And the only thing they were charged with was being a previous felon who was possessing a gun.
Right.
If they didn't have a significant criminal history, we were talking about the idea of, on a case-by-case basis, giving some of them a break and not sending them to prison, right?
Yeah.
And that was because a study had been done that showed that there was an 11-to-1 racial disparity in that offense. Even adjusting for population, you were 11 more.
Break that part down, because I think you can't walk past that part.
Right.
So people, I think that's the crux of the
apples
argument,
to
right?
apples, adjusting for population, you were 11 times more likely to be charged and convicted of that offense if you were black than if you were white.
Right.
And so I was asked, what can you do about that? And I said, one of the things we're thinking about doing, haven't done it yet, but we're thinking about on a case-by-case basis with that offense, taking a look at people's records and seeing, do they have a violent history? Or if not, can we give them a break? Can we do something other than prison, right?
Yeah.
And there was a big outcry, and the media misreported. They said, oh, you know, the DA is not going to prosecute gun offenses anymore, or he's going to let felons have guns. None of that was true, right? But what we did, though, Touche, is we took a look, and we realized the number of cases that would actually qualify was only a handful.
Okay.
So it wasn't worth the fight.
Right.
So we didn't do it.
Okay.
But even though we didn't do it, even though we just talked about it, that was enough for them to say, "Oh, well, that's a ground for removal."
Oh wow!
Of something that I never even did.
But you know, but see, and I say this out of love. You're getting your ass kicked in messaging. So you know, so right, yeah, and so and you know,
but we're doing better lately, though. You should check it out.
Okay. Well, you're on this show, so you're doing much
There you
better,
go.
right?
That's right.
Do they have a social media page?
They do.
Yeah,
They do.
it's a good one. You should check it.
I'm about to go look at it.
Yeah, in
Check it
fact,
out.
he shared this live on the social media page.
Yeah.
But you know, then what people missed all of that middle part. You know,
Right.
as to why you were
Right.
even considering
Right.
doing it. So Young Dolph's trial is coming up.
Yep.
What do you expect?
Well, that's one of these pending cases that I really can't talk about too much.
Right. I know you can't talk
I will say, what do I expect? I expect us to prevail because I think that we have sufficient evidence to prove the elements of all of the charged offenses beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what I expect will happen.
Yeah, and you know that situation has caused a war across Memphis, and I know you've been seeing some of the fallout of Young Dolph's death, right? And then you got Yo Gotti's brother's death, right? And you got that case too, right? And so how did you know? Did you even ever imagine that you would be handling cases like this?
No.
Rap wars.
No, I mean it's really so regrettable. I mean, Do people really think they're honoring the legacy and the memory of these people by just continuing this kind of violence? I know I did not think so, and it's a real shame.
Yeah. Are you seeing? And you answer this if you can. If you can't, I understand. Is there a tie to both Young Dolph's death and the death of Yo Gotti's
These
brother?
are just things I just really can't really speak to right now.
I completely understand, but I had to ask that question. So people want to know. Look, I want to thank you for being here, and and I want to thank you for your courage.
Oh, thank you.
And I want to tell you that I'm proud of you. Even hearing some of the stuff in the media, and I question it, but the good thing about it, I can call you.
Yeah.
Right. And
actually, get the straight dope.
What the hell we doing right here?
Yeah.
But I truly appreciate you, man. You keep up the good work, and man, let's continue to fight for justice and for our people here. In
Absolutely, and I'll come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Y'all give it up for Steve
Give it
Mulroy.
up. Give it up.
The Attorney General. Yeah.
Whoop, whoop. Yeah.
So look, I hope we asked all the questions that y'all wanted to hear. Make sure you don't go anywhere. We may have another show. We
I don't think
may
my
have
feet
another
gonna
show.
make it.
But look, hit that subscribe button. You've been watching the fastest growing visual podcast in the Memphis market, and we will see you next week.
You're watching the Antonio Parkinson Project.
Powered by Black Market Strategies.